Welcome to the Fantasy 40 podcast with your host, John Dabari.
I mean, I can beat the shit out of Hollywood Brown if you'd like.
Matt Walker.
Put the DK Metcalf at running back.
And Andrew Berg.
I love Hakeem Butler, actually. He's starting to grow on me.
Remember to like, rate, subscribe on Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Follow the guys on Twitter at the Fantasy 40. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Fantasy 40 podcast. We are back. Myself, Andrew Burke, John Dabari, and Matt Walker. We are continuing the All 32 series. Today, we are going to the NFC South. It's going to be a fun one. We got Walks Buccaneers. I know John's always saying Matt Ryan's going to regress, but he's yet to do that. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But before we get into things, we want to thank our partners over at the Full-Time Fantasy Network. They got podcasts, drafts, articles, everything. Go to fulltimefantasy.com. Check it out. You can actually find not just our podcast, but many, many others. How's it going, fellas?
Unexciting week 3. Usually this is the preseason week everybody looks forward to. You get to see the starters out there, but like everything the NFL touches, they find a way to ruin it. They're not even playing. Starters aren't even hitting the field in a bunch of these games this week. So this is actually turning into the shittiest week of the preseason because people had high expectations for it.
Well, John, that's also going to impact your injury mortality rate that you expect for most of these fucking guys to have.
Season starts. Just going to slide it to week 2 of the regular season. That's fine.
I really think it has a lot to do with the CBA. The NFL might be on strike here soon. So, Then we're going to have nothing to talk about. We'll switch to the XFL podcast. But
listen, the NFL is not going to go on strike.
All right.
Shorter windows and non-guaranteed contracts right now. These players can't afford it, and these owners aren't going to allow it to happen. This ain't baseball.
I don't know.
Just played for 20 years, and
we're going way off topic, but they should. The players should. The NFLPA is the shittiest, weakest union of all the professional sports in America.
That's their fault.
Totally.
Retired players.
They're just a garbage union. The league makes $1 billion, and half these guys end up out of the league in 3 years with nothing to show for it.
I just don't believe that it will transpire.
All right. Well, we'll have to keep our eyes peeled, and I'm going to start learning who's getting signed in the XFL just in case. Let's start.
Seattle Dragons.
Hey, that might be the first time I become a fan of somebody in the state of where I live.
There you go.
I might be a Seattle Dragon, and we were talking about dragons before the show, but that's on the that's on the cutting room floor. Okay, let's just jump into the All 32. Like I said, we're doing the South, and we're going to start with them dirty birds out in Atlanta. The Atlanta Falcons. Walker, why don't you start things off? And what did they do in the draft with these rookies?
They committed some resources to the O-line, which was definitely necessary to help Matt Ryan in that running game. And the only offensive player of significance was Quadre Allison, who I still contend was the second best running back in his backfield in college. He hasn't done that much in the preseason, and I believe he's already been passed by a guy that I will be mentioning later in this podcast. But not too fantasy relevant, but good for the offense as a whole.
John, I tried to look for some free agents. I couldn't find any. Did you dig up any that the Falcons brought in?
No, similar to what they did in the draft, they kind of brought in a few guys for the offensive line. That was clearly by a wide margin their main focus this offseason, and it probably should have been. So that was it. Free agency, they hit O-line. Rookie draft, they hit O-line, and that's where they're going to try to strengthen this team. And then, defensively, I was going to say Gus Bradley. Wrong former Seahawks D coordinator, but their head coach, whose name is escaping me right now.
Dan Quinn.
Dan Quinn is taking over defensive play calling this year too. So I think they're looking to get back to the Super Bowl. They know that window's shutting pretty soon here, and I think they're going to make a push to get back in the playoffs and try to get to the Super Bowl.
And I agree with you, and I think any progression of that defense or, if they're not hit by the injury bug as harder is going to impact that offense as well, which is all we care about on this podcast.
Yeah.
That's very true. Well, speaking of the Super Bowl, John, who is like a sleeper that could get you to your fantasy Super Bowl?
Ooh, nice. Everyone, obviously they've got Julio Jones, and everybody is high on Calvin Ridley after he scored a ton of touchdowns last year. Unsustainable in my opinion. But getting overlooked is Mohamed Sanu. He's not obviously the sexiest pick in the world, but he is currently wide receiver 85 off the board, 208th overall. He's been wide receiver 30 the last 2 years. So last year the Falcons had 3 wide receivers in the top 30. There's no reason. I mean, even if he regresses, he's probably a top 50 wide receiver. So sleeper, people know who he is, obviously, but someone who can outperform their ADP by 50%, Sanu. You know what I mean? Going from wide receiver 85, you're gonna get at least wide receiver 50 production out of him. But it's a nice fill-in at the end of your drafts. If you could hit with injuries or bye weeks.
Yeah, and he's actually pretty durable throughout his career. So
yeah.
I know he's getting up there in age, but Walker, who's taking you the promised land? That's a sleepy guy.
Yeah, right out of the gate, we talk about Mo Sanu. Labor just lost 10 people. Brian Hill, currently running back 95 in Fantasy Pro ECR. So he is still sleeping even in the expert community. He's going to be the backup to Devonta Freeman, in my opinion. He's looked tremendous this preseason. I've always liked this kid since coming out of Wyoming. He just hasn't really gotten a fair shot. Healthy and being productive in the preseason, he's better than Ito Smith because Ito Smith's not good. And we already discussed how I don't like Quadre Olison, even though he is a big man, so he'll have a role in this offense. But I think Brian Hill's the handcuff to Devonta Freeman. And Devonta Freeman gets hurt. And they're going to want to run the ball. So even if he doesn't, I think Hill's going to have a role in this offense. So I'm getting Brian Hill all day at the back end of my rosters.
All right. Well, I wish we could change the next little segment from breakout to maybe re-breakout. I was at the end of last year, I was scooping this guy up everywhere. He's going to be my breakout. Is Devonta Freeman. Hopefully he stays healthy. Like, Walker just said he's going to get hurt and Brian Hill's going to take over. But, I have him everywhere. He was cheap, and now everyone's on that train, which kind of scares me. You guys know how I am. Once everyone's on, I jump off. But Devonta Freeman's mine. But Walker, go ahead and get into your tight ends.
Getting right up in those ends. Listen, I don't hope Devonta Freeman gets hurt. In my main home dynasty league, Devonta Freeman hurt me last year by not playing. So I'm hoping for a healthy season so I could trade his ass. But Austin Hooper, who is currently, again, everything's Fantasy Pros ECR right now in PPR leagues, tight end 12 on Fantasy Pros ECR. He was tight end 6 last year. Austin Hooper's not sexy. Austin Hooper's not ever going to threaten like the top 3 of tight ends. But he's not tight end 12. He's a function of this offense. There's absolutely no one else in Atlanta to siphon away any targets from him in the middle of the field. And he's going to produce better than tight end 12. He will be a top 8 tight end again this year, barring injury. It's just an absolute fact. So.
Both of you have already said he is not sexy. So I'm just wondering, so I can wrap my mind around this. Who would be sexy on the Falcons?
Well, Brian Hill's sexy. I didn't say he wasn't sexy. I said most of Sanu wasn't. That was John's. The receiver core is definitely not threatening sexy. There's realized and unsexy. That's what they're known as.
I want to hear, John, is your breakout sexy?
It is also Mr. Austin Hooper. Not much I'm going to add that Walker didn't. He's a real great value in drafts. I've been trying to wait as late as possible to hit quarterback and tight end in most of my redraft leagues that I've been doing this year. And eventually he just becomes a really good value when I'm drafting, and I've already pounded tight end and wide receiver and running back. And he's just staring you in the face there, and you go, well, I can get top 6 production here. How do I not do that at this point?
I just grabbed Hooper in the 10th round of drafting with Giants. I know it's not a tight end premium, but it's a best ball. But he was sitting there, and I'm like, shit, this is free money right here.
Yeah, I think I just got Anthony Miller in the 10th, actually, just as you were saying that. But that's kind of funny how we go from pounding to sexy, and now we're on bust, John.
A seamless transition. Ito Smith, I just don't similar to Walker. I just don't believe in the talent. I think I'm a huge Brian Hill fan too. I loved him coming to Wyoming, but I have been screwed here because I took him a ton of places as a flyer, as a rookie, and now I had to drop him over the years to make space. And now that he's doing something, or has the potential to do something, he's not on my teams. But I think Hill and Allison are going to outperform him throughout the year, and Smith is not going to live up to the hype. Some people are drafted him based on the little bit of production he had last year.
Gotcha. Walker?
I mean, if anyone watched Atlanta last year, they know Ito Smith's not good at football. I don't care where that team was. He had all the opportunity in the world and couldn't do shit with it. So sell before he's cut from the team. Mine's Calvin Ridley. Not that I don't like Calvin Ridley, but currently ECR wide receiver 19. 10 touchdowns last year is not going to happen again. He had 93 targets, so I don't know how much room there is for target growth with him as the secondary option in their passing game. They should be throwing to the running backs more with Freeman back, and I just don't see how he's going to return that mid-tier wide receiver 2 value. I like him as a player, but he's more of a flex to me, and I think he's volatile. So given what he did last year, I'm going to say bust on that wide receiver 19 rank.
I totally forgot about him. And I hate his guts. Like, that was an easy bust for me, and I just...
Well, you took the free square with Ito Smith. So
I did.
Moved on.
Ito got lit the hell up in the preseason game, catching this one out of the flat. Got up looking like Chris Johnson, shaking his head all around.
Listen, he should have just stayed on the ground.
He should have. But
afterwards.
All right, I'll lead things off with the record. I do think they do a little better this year if Devonta stays healthy. I think that's where they were lacking last year, and Matt Ryan is probably, I'm going to go ahead and say it for you, John, due for regression because of the running game kind of gets sparked back up this year. But I'm going to go ahead and go 10-6 this year. What do you got?
I actually, for the first time in the years we've known each other, I'm done beating up Matt Ryan. He's proved me wrong time and time again. No reason he can't keep doing what he's been doing. But surprisingly, I didn't like the Falcons coming in. Again, I went game by game, did the full season wins, losses. I have the Falcons at 12-4.
Wow. Uh-oh.
Holy Moses. First off, John, if there's one thing we don't do in a 40, it's waiver. If you hate Matt Ryan, you hate him until he retires. That's the bylaws of the fantasy.
I don't hate him. I just
all right. Well, you let him off the hook. You Denny Greened him.
That's
right
fair.
there. Unacceptable. 8-8 for those Atlanta Falcons. I do think they're a good team. I don't think they're a great team. And I'm going to reserve judgment on that defense getting fixed from last year. So.
All right. Well, that's a great way to start. We actually beat the timer. That a boy. Let's go to the Carolina Panthers. It's pretty interesting offseason for them. Everyone was thinking that Cam Newton had the old Andrew Luck shoulder, which I was one of them. I was banking on Will Grier getting some PT. Walker, why don't you talk about the rookies, and then we'll get into things.
Listen, first off, Cam has been in a car that's flipped over and broke stuff in his back and still played football. I'm not doubting that man getting on the football field. And also that Carolina might put him out there when they shouldn't, unlike those Indianapolis Colts who are trying to protect Andrew Luck. But as far as rookies are concerned, they went after Brian Burns, who's going to be an outside linebacker in their new scheme in the first round. I like the player in IDP. I'm not sure I like him being an outside linebacker. But then Will Grier, who you mentioned, who should end up being the backup to Cam Newton, and Jordan Scarlett a little later, who by all accounts is going to be the backup to Christian McCaffrey to start the season, unless it's Cameron Artis-Payne, which it should never be Cameron Artis-Payne.
How dare you?
How is he still? I mean, I was watching one of the games, and I seen Artis-Payne, getting the start, obviously, because they're not running McCaffrey. And I'm just like, dude, this guy needs to go away.
Have we verified his age yet? Isn't he like 47?
I don't know. What was the other guy that was always stealing touchdowns? The big thick
Fozzie Whitaker?
Yeah, Mike Tolbert.
Tolbert, yes. Yeah. And Fozzie
was a
treasure. They've got a history of weird depth chart running backs.
I think they picked up Kenyon Barner. You got any free agents?
They too, like Atlanta, got some offensive line help, but the big name for fantasy, big in quotes, Chris Hogan. Hyped up a couple years ago, did nothing, fell flat on their face, and he's probably going to do nothing here too.
I was going to say, does he even make the team?
He makes a team because they have dog shit behind Samuel and Moore.
And those guys are not big guys. I think they need they lost Funchess, so they got to bring him in, right?
Is Hogan a big guy? No.
He's bigger than those two.
But he kind of brings that deep threat element that they are missing since Ted Ginn left. If he can do it, we'll see.
Yeah. Why does he always look like he's on speed, though? Whenever they, pan to his face in the games, his eyes are as big as fucking cue ball.
Sure, 90% of these guys are on amphetamine, so he probably is.
Walker. Speaking of no sleep, who's your sleeper?
My sleeper is Ian Thomas. Talking tight ends. We're going tight end heavy today. I don't believe in Greg Olsen. I actually did not think he would play this season or ever again. He's trying to prove me wrong, but still not scaring me off. Ian Thomas at tight end 21 right now. He's a nice late round dart throw as your tight end too, who could produce. He did late last season. Cam loves the tight end. I'm not trusting Greg Olsen or his health. He could be in the booth before we know it. So whether it's redraft or dynasty, I'm a huge fan of Ian Thomas.
Yeah, especially I see you have him down as he's tight end 21 off the board, so value's there. And what's this, year 3? We always talk about that year 3 breakout, so I like that one. What about you?
Is it 2?
This is year 3, no? I'm thinking of Gerald Everett. My fault. Okay.
I think you're right.
So we'll get to that later. But John, who's yours?
Jordan Scarlett. I think they are. I mean, obviously, it's going to be hard to steal any work away from Christian McCaffrey, but I think Scarlett is going to be kind of a sneaky value guy, especially for obviously dynasty leagues here. I think they're going to get him a little bit of work to keep some of that load off McCaffrey, and I think he's going to surprise some people. I don't think he's not a league winner, but again, especially if you have McCaffrey, he's a great handcuff to grab late because he's entirely free.
The conversation out of Carolina has been interesting because they've said that they want to be mindful of McCaffrey's touches, but they made it clear that they're not going to limit them. They're just it's pretty much when he's on the field, he's getting the ball. I think what they said. So he's not going to be out there to block or just run a clear route or something like that. So be interesting to see how that really transpires because I'm still of the mindset that they gave him way too much work last year.
I hear you there, but
he held up. I mean, he didn't even have a little no nagging injuries, no anything.
He's even fucking bigger this year. So,
attaboy.
I'm pretty sure he only came off the field for 3 plays all year, if I recall hearing that right.
I think it was 6 snaps of their entire offense.
Yeah. Are you kidding me?
No.
Insane number. His snap rate was unbelievable. That's why C.J. Anderson could never get on the field. They're like, hey, Chris, you want to call? No, waved him off. I'm good.
It's very true, and he was even on special teams running on kickoff. Just joking, but John, who's your breakout?
I gotta get me a McCaffrey jersey. What a man! Breakout. Walk had him as a sleeper. Ian Thomas. I think he took a big step forward last year when Greg Olsen was down, and I think whether Olsen's on the field or not, and I assume unfortunately his year wraps up a little early with some other random injury. I think Ian Thomas takes that next step. And, similar, we're talking to Hooper being, tight end 6. I think Ian Thomas is another young guy, just like Hooper, who's going to end up being in that perennial, tier 2 outside of those top 3 top tight ends year in and year out. I think as shitty as tight end's been the last couple seasons, I think there's enough young talent. It's starting to be on the upswing now. So it's becoming a pretty solid position fantasy-wise, but I think Ian Thomas takes the next step and he finishes as a top 12 tight end this year.
Well, you hear that, listeners. Both of the guys are on Ian Thomas, and right now, before the season gets rolling, go grab him. He's still pretty cheap. Like I said, tight end 21 off the board. Walker, who you got?
I wrote 2 because I really do believe both these guys can do it, and it's the interesting dichotomy of the 2 is that DJ Moore is currently wide receiver 16 on Fantasy Pros ECR, but he's being taken as wide receiver 26 via Fantasy Football Calculator's ADP. And then there is my man Curtis Samuel, who is ranked as wide receiver 42, but he's being drafted as wide receiver 33. So neither are really sitting where they're being ranked. Moore is falling to value, and Samuel is just starting to creep up because he has had probably the greatest offseason reports I've ever seen outside of Devontae Parker. They are just they are slobbering all over this young man, and I'm there. I liked him coming out. I thought he was developmental. It takes a little bit of time, but he's super dynamic, and if they can use him right, I'm going to plant my flag on Curtis Samuel as the breakout. But I do think DJ Moore can be a high-end wide receiver too. I think they can both thrive in this offense because, like you said, John, there's nothing else in that wide receiver room. Christian McCaffrey already absorbs his 100 catches, and then it's whatever the tight end does. But the rest of those targets are going to those two guys.
All right, before we go to bus, let's do a little quiz. We got a little bit of extra time, but Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore, both at their current ADPs. Which one would you rather have? Go first, Walk.
I mean, I'm going to take DJ Moore because they're only 7 spots apart. I think he's going to get more targets.
John?
I like more than Samuel.
Okay.
He likes more and more.
Yeah. I was hoping.
I got halfway through the sentence. I was like, I sound like an idiot. That happens most of the time, but
It must be how the camera's on you.
yes.
Well, all right. Walk. Go ahead and throw out your bust, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've both already taken shots at this fine gentleman who some people in the fantasy community said I look like. But Greg Olsen, tight end 32, so everyone else is already there. But I just don't buy it. That foot injury, he had to go back in and get a second surgery, which is common for it. He's getting older. The emergence of Ian Thomas. I'm not buying Greg Olsen as a product of that offense. So I'm there with ECR.
So I couldn't decide. I have it. It's going to be either DJ Moore or Curtis Samuel. I just don't see how this offense supports both of them. All Walker mentioned how everyone's jumping all over Curtis Samuel. DJ Moore had a lot of hype last year, still has some hype coming into this year. But I think with the work that McCaffrey is absolutely going to get, the amount of volume that goes to the tight end, no matter if it's Olsen or Thomas, there's only so much left for Moore and Samuel. And I don't think this offense is high volume enough to support both Moore and Samuel. So one of the two, I don't think is going to live up to all this hype this year or their ADP. It's up to you. Roll of the dice. Like, you would just ask the question, who do you like between the two of them? I went with Moore, but I mean, obviously Samuel is slightly cheaper. So if you want to get the better value, it's probably him, but I just think one of them is going to disappoint their owners this year.
Hey, Switzerland, plant a flag. Who's the bust?
Well, if I said I like Moore out of the two, then I guess I got to go Samuel as the bust.
All right.
Well, here's a question. Has not only Cam Newton, but Carolina ever supported, a wide receiver 1 and a 2? Because that's probably the best outcome in that.
And
Steve Smith and Musha Muhammad, but that was long before Cam was there.
That was old Del Homie, huh?
Well, listen, if Greg Olsen isn't Greg Olsen anymore, then he was pretty much the wide receiver 1 for the beginning of Cam's career, or at least wide receiver 2. So,
but I think that goes to Ian Thomas. I think that's a product of Cam liking to target his tight end.
I hope you're right. I like Ian Thomas.
That's true.
I feel like Samuel's a guy that's going to get a couple carries here and there too, so he can live off 5 targets in a game and get like 2 or 3 carries. I mean, he's going to be boom or bust. But at the end of the year, his stat line might be, better than expected. That it wouldn't, quote unquote, be a bust. But I'm with you. I mean, the offense is scary.
All right. Well, what's the record, Walker?
9-7 for those Carolina Panthers. I like what they're doing, transitioning the defense. I'm buying into a healthy Cam. I do like the weapons that they have. So, and I think they're a good team.
I just think they need a little more continuity this year with everyone being healthy. Samuel's been banged up last couple of years, kind of came on late last year. So I'm going to go with 8-8. John?
I am at 8-8 also.
All right, so we're not too far off. Walker has them, 9-7, maybe, especially in the NFC. It's always pretty tight. So maybe looking at a wild card or fighting there towards the end. Let's go ahead and go down to the Big Easy. We're going to New Orleans. John, any rookies out there worth talking about?
They took Alize Mack, tight end out of Notre Dame late. He's kind of developmental Vegas kid, but, they brought in Jared Cook. They brought in They still have what's his name, Hill, the other tight end. So they are probably not going to have any production out of him for a couple of years, if anything. And by the time he's ready, Breeze may be out of there. So who cares? The guy that I like for IDP purposes, though, is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, safety. I believe he came out of Florida.
Correct.
That kid's an animal. I think right now he's not. I think he's like the, nickel package guy. But I think he's going to be a stud. I grabbed him everywhere in IDP leagues. I love him.
Well, Walker, he kind of mentioned Jared Cook. I know you kind of called his breakout last year, but is that the only free agent they brought in pretty much or what?
No, John seems to be the one corner in the market on looking at these free agent moves. For us, I couldn't think of anyone else off the top of my head of significance, but I think Jared Cook is certainly of significance. They haven't had a tight end of his caliber since Jimmy Graham was there. And while Breeze isn't Breeze of the Jimmy Graham era, I still do think that there's a function of their offense that they would like to run through the tight end, and now they have a guy that can do it.
All right. Well, what about your sleeper then?
I went with Traquan Smith, and it's because we're talking about light depth charts. Behind Michael Thomas, there is little to be excited about in New Orleans. I mean, Ted Ginn is what Ted Ginn is. Traquan Smith had a couple boom games last year, but was still, a rookie, and he was learning. They got, what's his name? Keith, can't remember his last name. That tells you everything you need to know about him. And can't name another guy. So I'll two there, and I'm hoping for some progression in year two. And currently he's going as wide receiver 57. He's listed in Fantasy Pros ECR. I think that's worth the risk as your wide receiver 5 in that offense, even though they're not throwing it nearly as much as they did.
John, can you throw a different name out?
Oh boy, can I? We did not mention him as one of the free agent signings. Latavius Murray. He is running back 45, 121st overall, so tail end of the 10th round in your draft. The guys that, the stat guys do a lot of metrics. They say he's better than Mark Ingram when you actually look at his on the field production and what he did. I don't know too much about it, but I've seen that around the old interwebs. But if he even gets 75% of the same production Ingram had over the last 3 years, it's 147 fantasy points, which is RB19. I think he actually ends up finishing right around where Ingram does. I think he's a lock to be a running back too, and to get him in the 10th round, 45th running back off the board. I've been trying to snatch him up in all my redrafts this year. I'm going to be heavily invested in him. I love Latavius Murray this year.
Well, with that said, then who's going to be your breakout with Latavius doing all that work?
I went with Traquan Smith.
Oh, you guys, that's so cute.
Be awkward.
Yeah.
My breakout is Latavius Murray.
Look at us,
free agent. But I had some different numbers on him, and he's ECR running back 40, which is stealing. But current Fantasy Football Calculator P has him as running back 32 off the board, so a little sooner than what you had mentioned. But he's going after Lamar Miller and Tariq Cohen. I'm taking him over both.
Oh, my God.
What's going on right now. There's some other names that are climbing above him that I kind of agree with, but I think he is easily a flex running back that in bye weeks can give you RB2 value. I'm one of those people that also believe that he is better and he will produce better in the system than Mark Ingram did. No disrespect to Mark Ingram. I just think Latavius Murray has been dealt shitty hands just about his entire career and been on bad teams with bad O-lines, and now he's finally in a scheme with a prolific quarterback and a good O-line. He could be dangerous. He's going to threaten 10 touchdowns this year, and he's going to get to work. They're not giving Alvin Kamara anything more than he sees during the health days. I don't buy it at all. I don't care what's written out there or that it's his season or whatever. He is used in a specific way, and it maximizes him and keeps him healthy.
Here's the question for you guys then. Would you be shocked at all if Murray finished, let's say, running back 12 and Kamara finishes like 6 or something, like they did a couple years ago?
No.
You can't be shocked.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, but I don't – it doesn't seem like most people out there are even in – I mean, obviously, looking at his ADP, most people aren't even close to thinking that's possible because that number would shoot way up, probably into the, early 20s at least.
The the thing of it is that he's still lingering there. So why reach if you don't have to? So maybe it's just that novices aren't going to push up, his average draft position. But I agree with you. I mean, you don't have to draft him there for that to be the return. I just know, Alvin Kamara is going to get the catches and the yards and should produce enough touchdowns that it's expected from him. Murray's not going to get the catches barring an injury. And so he's going to be touchdown dependent. That's going to be he might end up as a top 20 running back, but I don't think it's going to be consistent for him.
Yeah, I don't have my schedules in front of me, but they played Dallas really early on. And if Jalen Smith runs down Alvin Kamara and knocks his head off again, we could be seeing a little bit more Latavius Murray. I had to throw in my Cowboys.
Rich Jalen Smith?
What's that?
I said, you mean Rich Jalen Smith?
Thank you, Zeke. We appreciate it. All right, let's go to the bust. Go ahead, Walk.
Mine was Drew Brees, and then I looked at his Fantasy Pros ECR, and he's quarterback 21.
Yeah.
So they're there already. It's the Taysom Hill effect. He's not throwing it much. Taysom Hill packages. He's in the red zone. Crazy shit's happening down in the Big Easy. But Brees' days of being a top 5 fantasy quarterback are gone. They're over. He gets a couple gimme touchdowns in years past. That ain't happening anymore. That's all Taysom Hill. And he's losing kind of that red zone work and even just some of those random gadget plays of Taysom Hill. So Brees is still one of the best NFL quarterbacks. He's still win a Super Bowl. I'd be hard pressed to be happy with him as my QB2 in a super flex league.
That's a great point. And not to go back to the Cowboys, but it does remind me with the rushing attack with Emmitt Smith back in the day, Troy Aikman didn't have to throw the ball that much. And when he did, it was Michael Irvin. So I could see, Michael Thomas just continuing on with dominating, all the targets and the catches when they do throw the ball. So I like that there. And if you own Michael Thomas or drafting him, it's probably going to be a pretty good deal for you. John, who's yours?
Aside from just hating his guts, Jared Cook. I just have never been a fan. I'm not a fan now. I don't see him reproducing the New Orleans tight end glory days of years past. I'm over it. I've been over it. I don't think he's that good.
John, he is a fantasy bunny rabbit because he is going to reproduce all of this year, my man.
Like you said with Matt Ryan, I'm going to stick to brand here. I hate him. I'm not wavering. Told me not to waver. I stick to my guns. Jared Cook sucks.
Wrong gun.
Jared Cook. John, then what's your record for the Saints?
11-5.
Man, you guys are on point today, Walker.
11-5.
I went 12-4. I think they take the division. Somehow, I think the defense is going to improve. They kind of regressed from Lattimore's rookie year last year. Maybe it was, the hangover from the Vikings or whatever, but I don't know. They got to do something on the defensive side of the ball because they were one to be reckoned with at one time. So hopefully
they're going to be angry after the playoff loss too.
Right. So I expect big things out of the Saints, just pounding the ball, milking the clock, and then being very efficient in the red zone. That's one thing Drew Brees is. So let's go to Tampa. This is Walker's favorite team. This might take – that's why we saved it for last, so I can cut him off if we run a little long. But I'll give you a chance to go ahead and talk about the rookies real quick, Walker.
The last shall be first. My Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Fighting Bruce Arians. We can talk about – they should have their own podcast. As far as rookies, there's only one of significance. It's Devin White, who is going to be an absolute tackling machine at inside linebacker for them because their defense still isn't really that good. So he is going to put up numbers for them. Beyond that, Scott Miller late, who's been hurt all camp. There's not a lot of rookie – offensive value as far as dynasty leagues are concerned. There was undrafted free agent Bruce Anderson, who we haven't heard a peep from since the start of camp. So I think his shot is come and gone. But the only one of significance from rookies I can recall free agents is Devin White. John might be able to give a little bit more.
Yeah, no, Devin White was the only one I had for fantasy anyway. He's going to come in and be a starting middle linebacker, and they're going to give him every chance in the world to succeed out there. So obviously most rookie drafts have wrapped up long ago, but he was somebody I was targeting in my IDP leagues. And I think he's going to just, you think of it like in terms of running back, volume is the key, and he's going to be on the field for 3 downs all year long. So unless he gets hurt, he should just fall backwards into pretty decent tackle numbers.
Well,
He's going to be everything they wanted Quan Alexander to be.
Well, I mean, one thing they didn't do is bring a lot of guys in this offseason. They let Humphrey go to Tennessee, which is fine. They got guys like Justin Watson and stuff trying to earn their spot at the wide receiver position. So we'll go ahead and skip over the free agents. And John, what's your sleeper looking like?
I went scraping the bottom of the barrel. Andre Ellington, out of nowhere. He's an Arians guy. Arians has brought him along a couple times wherever he's been, and he knows the system. He's someone that can plug and play. Ahead of him, we've got the awful Ronald Jones, the mediocre Peyton Barber, my man Bruce Anderson, breaking my heart, not doing shit. So I think Ellington can actually end up getting some value in PPR leagues. Is he going to ever win you a week? No, but I think once he gets his legs under him and he gets to get on the field a little bit, I wouldn't be – He's definitely in play flex when the bye weeks hit and you're scrambling for people. I think they're going to use him because he just knows the system and Arians trust him.
Walker, I think John didn't say one guy's name because he didn't want to try to pronounce it, but it looks like he's your sleeper. Who is that?
The beauty of John's setup was in this smooth transition. And before we go into it, Brashad Perriman is a free agent that they did bring in. He's not going to do shit.
Oh, my God.
We didn't mention him. But John mentioned every running back except the most important one.
Got it.
And that is Dare Ogunbowale, who
Nice.
is going to be the reason that Andre Ellington doesn't make this team, in my opinion, because – they're going to keep Peyton Barber. They're probably going to keep Ronald Jones because of draft capital involved because no one wants to fucking trade for him. Dare will be their third down back. So unless Ellington at his decrepit old age of probably 30 is going to play special teams for them, he is not going to be on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Dare has been doing great in camp. I love this kid coming out of Wisconsin. I think part of it was that I just hated Melvin Gordon so bad that I was calling him the best Badger back that I've ever seen. But, a little hyperbole. But I do like the kid. He landed in a perfect situation. He's a plus pass catcher. He showed it in college. It's a huge product of Bruce Arians' offense. This guy is going to creep up, and he is going to be fantasy viable and relevant this season.
I don't know. I kind of liked Ron Dane better than Melvin Gordon.
Just keep knocking him down.
Yep.
Name a Badger back. We're
James White.
James White. There you go.
Oh, yeah. Let's get this out of the way, Walker. Talk about your breakout.
Oh, God.
Holy Moses. Where to begin? If it's your first time on the podcast, you might not know that I like Chris Godwin. Apparently, wide receiver 18 in Fantasy Pros ECR, and that is not good enough, folks. That is a mid-range wide receiver 2, and Chris Godwin is going to be a wide receiver 1 this season in PPR. Whether you want to believe Bruce Arians or not, coach speak or not, I believe Bruce Arians. I think he speaks the truth. And they said he's going to get 100 catches and he's never leaving the field. Okay, sign me up. 100 catches, never leaving the field. That is a wide receiver 1. Chris Godwin is absolutely amazing. He could never do anything wrong in life. He's got a fantastic name. Just plays right into my praising of him. He's perfect. He is everything that you want in a fantasy wide receiver, and he is going to break out in this offense. He is going to be the Larry Fitzgerald of this Bruce Arians offense, and Larry Fitzgerald was highly productive in the latter stages of his career, and Chris Godwin is a more athletic version of that. Peak Larry Fitzgerald in the Bruce Arians system.
Wrap your mind around that for a second, right? I mean, you can't really say much more. I'm on board, and John kind of talked about it earlier about how the starters aren't playing. It's probably a good thing if you're, one of those home leagues that don't draft until, the Monday or Tuesday before that first Thursday night game, because we're not going to see a bunch of Chris Godwin and his double touchdowns in the preseason where everyone's going to maybe even creep into the top end of the second round in your home league. So
he's being taken after Edelman, Cooks, and Woods, and without hesitation, I take him over all of them.
I agreed. John?
I mean, I'm not definitely over the Rams guys. We mentioned Evans. Well, we didn't mention Evans, but they have Mike Evans. They have Godwin, who's getting all the hype. Behind them, just going back to free agents and rookies again, they've got three of my favorite undrafted wide receivers, and it's sickening because they're not going to ever see the field. They got Emmanuel Hall that the Bears let go, Anthony Johnson from Buffalo, and DeMarcus Lodge that I thought was better than DK Metcalf there. So, but they're just buried talking about free agents and rookies earlier, and it just sucks because we're never going to see any of the three.
Yeah, they're really liking that Watson guy from that they drafted last year.
Yeah.
So, who is it?
My breakout, Mr. O.J. Howard, who I loved coming out, and I just was in bad draft spots, and I got no shares of him. So I'm hoping that this is the year. The narrative is the Arians offenses don't target tight end that often, but then they are impressed with his skill set and all that shit. So I think this is going to be his year. I think he's going to see a lot more work. I don't think Cameron Brate's going to see the targets and snap count that he's seen the last couple of years, despite his big new contract a year or two ago. But give me O.J. Howard taking that next step. Like we said earlier with Ian Thomas and Austin Hooper, I think he's right in that tier 2 group of young tight ends right behind the big 3.
Well, John transitioned into your bus pretty nice. Walker, why don't you go ahead and hit it?
He did, but I'm going to talk about two people. But to piggyback on John's at first, O.J. Howard is tight end 4 right now in fantasy ADP on the calculator. So he is the guy after that big 3. And I don't disagree with you. I mean, what he's done when he's on the field has been impressive. He just needs to stay on the field. I'm not buying into the fact that Arians' offense hasn't supported one. It's because they haven't had a tight end like O.J. Howard. Cameron Brate's an easy bust. See everything John said, raise the fact that he's irrelevant unless O.J. Howard gets hurt. But I'm going to pivot, and I'm going with Mike Evans. Mike Evans is wide receiver 6, Fantasy Pros ADP, being taken as wide receiver 8. It's going to be touchdowns because he's going to lose volume at this point in time. And I'm not the biggest Evans guy, and I'm not taking him in the top half of whatever round he's in. Let's go real quick and try and change it and talk about him being taken at 208. No, I'll wait, and I'll take Chris Godwin down at 4.7. Give me that 2-round discount on Godwin. So if I'm that high on Godwin, I by default can't be that high on Evans. But I do think there's a world where they can both be wide receiver 1s. It happens in football. This offense could support it. Jameis Winston is going to have a banner year and be a QB1. I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about him at some point in this because he's not going to get the hook with Bruce Arians, and there's no Ryan Fitzpatrick there anymore. So you might as well give me a Chris Godwin, Jameis Winston breakout, and a Cameron Brate, Mike Evans bust. How about that?
All right. Fair points. John, who's your bust?
I am going to contradict our man Walker here. Mr. Crab Leg Thief himself, Jameis Winston. Everyone's hyped up with Arians coming into town. They think this is going to be the next big offense in the NFL. I just think Winston is a turnover machine. I don't think he's an elite NFL quarterback. Obviously the upside is there. If Arians can get him on the right path and get this into kind of a Arians-esque offense we've seen in the past, could he be amazing? Sure. I don't think the skill set is there. I've thought when he came into the league, he was just a younger, blacker Eli Manning, and I think that's kind of his career trajectory. I think he's going to throw a ton of picks, and I just don't think he's going to realize the upside everyone else thinks he's going to under Arians. I think this team disappoints big time, and I think it's all on his shoulders.
John, I got 2 questions. 1,
yes,
how dare you? And 2, how is he a blacker Eli Manning? I need clarity on the black.
Well, he is.
What he is. Now, my second question was actually, why are the only people you're sticking to your guns about the ones that I like? You're pivoting off all your other guns, but you're holding on. It's now Jared Cook and Jameis Winston. I'm noticing a trend.
I never liked Jameis Winston.
Exactly. You're sticking to the wrong gun.
Oh, I'm getting you now.
Yeah. All right.
Agree to disagree.
Walker, with all this offensive explosions, what do you have their record at?
I'm a 7-9, and I think it's more division. I mean, I think there's 4 good teams in this division, to be totally honest. The Bucs have by far the worst defense. So I think they'll win shootouts, but they'll be a losing team.
Very true. I'm on the same as you, and I'm actually counting on them going 6-10, but kind of doing the old Blake Bortles deal and playing from behind and Arians airing out the ball so everyone gets theirs, but they still come on the short end of the stick. So 6-10 for me. What about you, Dabari?
Can't believe Walker gave him only 7-9. 6-10, just like you.
Not gonna lie, I had him at 8-8, but that'd be real.
I thought one of us was going to give him, 10 wins so we could actually
so did I.
post this on Reddit and not get killed for it. But obviously, we're still going to be banned from Reddit. We're
Reddit,
banned.
Tampa Bay Reddit hates us.
I don't know. We're sorry, guys.
If for nothing else, Tampa Bay Reddit needs to come to a realization that we're honest about their team.
That's true.
If they just listen to us, they'd be a lot happier and well adjusted.
That's a fact.
I mean, at least Dirk Cutter's gone, and we don't have to totally badger the team like we did in previous years. So
Listen, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have some of my favorite players on offense. Honestly, I love Chris Godwin. I'm a huge O.J. Howard fan. I've just talked positively about Jameis Winston, and I'm even finding a running back I like on their team when they're not really giving us much to draw from.
you know what? If they brought back Warwick Dunn, I'd be all in. So
Michael, it's not for me.
They give me the creamsicle uniforms. I'll bump them up to 8-8.
All right. There we go.
Every game and then.
Or even just their logo. Keep the colors. Give me the old Buccaneer logo.
With the little dagger in his mouth. That's not bad.
The best logo in the history of sports.
Right. Let's shut it down there for the NFC South. I believe we have the NFC East next. So me and Walker will be squaring off here and there. Make sure you stay tuned to that. Remember to like, rate, and subscribe on iTunes, Podbeam, Stitcher. What else, man? Spotify. I think the only – what's that? Spreaker. God, that's a good one. So make sure to follow us on there and at the Fantasy 40 on Twitter. We need to get that account going, guys. Ask us some questions. The more questions we get, maybe we'll start giving some stuff away. But that's few and far between. The season's about to kick off, and looking forward to closing out this all 32 so we can get into some redraft mocks and stuff. But for another time. So
the East is going to be a bloodbath.
It is, but I can't defend anything now with all the drama the Cowboys got going on. But we'll see. I'm going to definitely put up my dukes for that one. So for myself, Andrew Burke, John Nabari, and Matt Walker, we're the Fantasy 40, and we're signing off.
There'd be like 13 people that fucking don't miss a second of it.
It said it's a fantasy podcast. We're talking about football.
Today we're discussing chili dogs and white dragons.
What's a white dragon?